All right, peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. As we first talk about this Supreme Court case, which shows that there might be some issues with this loophole, quote unquote, in this obstruction case that the Supreme Court is looking at as it relates to the January 6th rioters. We're going to look at that, have that conversation. Also, Rainbow Push leader Dwayne, Pastor Haynes has officially resigned only after 3 months, leaving many questions and no answers. We'll talk about the impact that it has. Also, later on, we're going to talk about how some Black University of Florida alumni wants the university to reinstate DEI policies to help and continue to empower Black students. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then later on, folks, let's talk about Black Maternal Health Week. We're going to check in with one sister who's doing the work of making sure that Black women are supported during their time of pregnancy. Folks, stay with us. There's a whole lot to get to on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Happy Wednesday, folks. Happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, April the 17th. And I thank you so much for being with me on this hump day as we have a lot of conversations lined up for you. But before we get to the discussions, we got to let you know, folks, that we are streaming on a number of different places and spaces. And first, make sure y'all check us out on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you check out our website there. You can download the app for free on any of your devices. And then more importantly, follow us on social media at Black Star Network and put something in the bucket to help us to continue to power us and fund us in this digital space so we can continue to have the conversations that are most important to you. So you can do all of that at blackstarnetwork.com. Now, folks, we're also streaming on Amazon platforms. So make sure you check us out there on Amazon News on your Fire TV. You can also find us on the Amazon Prime Video app. And just find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, The News. We're also streaming on the Freevee network, You can find us on now under News for Black Star Network, as well as Plex TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV and then news and opinions. Now, we're also streaming on Big Brother Roland Martin's social media pages, on his Facebook page, as well as on his YouTube channel. And big shout out to the online culture crew, the great culture crew. That's right, for always checking in, being a part of the conversations on all of those spaces, on the X platform, on Facebook, and on YouTube. We certainly appreciate each and every one of them for being with us today. And we thank you so much for all of you for your continued support. And if you are not familiar with how this thing goes, it's very simple, folks. You jump in the chat, we hear what you got to say, we bring your conversations to the forefront of the discussions on air, and that way this is a whole interactive experience for the culture here on the Black Star Network as I check in and talk to the guests, talk to you, and let's just keep the conversation going. So big shout out to the online culture crew. Let me see who is in here. We got the Stephanie Humphrey channel, the ABX girl, Deidre Hall, I see you. Pastor Damon Blissett, I see you. Arlene Starks, I see you. Brian Christian, I see you. Who else we got? Wild Democrat Nut Job. Oh, wow, there we go, my guy. Thank you for checking in. And so many of you are checking in. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And in a few moments, I'm going to bring my sister in. It's Wednesday. Y'all know how we do on Wednesdays. My sister, she is the host of the Suzette Speaks Show. She is a licensed attorney out of the state of Florida. She is a political contributor here on Black Star Network, here on the Culture, Roland Martin Unfiltered. And she is the host. Come on, I want to hear. I love this part. Let me bring my sister in. Suzette Speaks is checking in with me as always on Wednesday. Suzette, thank you so much. Suzette, let's drop it because I think it's launch time or something. Isn't it go time for for the show and down in South Florida. Give us the deets on that. What's the deets?
Yes, it's always a pleasure to be with my peoples here at the culture. But yes, Farajii, I'm grateful. Thank you for the shout out. I have begun a journey here in Miami as a host on an FM radio show called The Show Live. Shout out to me, yay! On Caribbean American talk / music stations, or actually it's a family of stations from Miami, North Miami, Hollywood, up to Fort Lauderdale, Vero Beach, Port St. Lucie, Stewart, all the way up to Orlando. And I'll be doing a talk show every Thursday and Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. live. So if you follow me, please listen in Thursdays and Fridays, midday chick, they say, something like that. And bringing on interesting guests. You know, we do it for the culture. So I'm grateful for the shout out. The Voice of the Caribbean, I&I Radio. Let's go.
There we go. The Voice of the Caribbean in South Florida. There we go.
So listen in, tune in. I appreciate the love. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. There we go.
Yay.
Hey, look, real quick. When I tuned in, I think you were talking to a sister about housing, or I think it was, but it was like a couple of days ago. And I didn't realize you have a serious Caribbean accent.
Hey, it's in there. Now,
I was like, wait a minute, hold up. It kicked out. I was like, oh, Suzette Speaks is Suzette Speaks.
Morning Kingston, baby. It's in there. But yeah, we mix it up. Of course, again, that particular platform is designed for the Caribbean American experience. So like me, daughter of immigrants, many of us have different languages spoken. Of course, we love, the blackness, the diasporaness of what it means to be part American, part of your old country's culture. But yeah, we mix it up. So I do a lot of interviews with Caribbean American people, and it's really fun. So I hope you enjoy. Don't let the code switch scare you any. It's in.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it, and I enjoy
that's how I talk when I'm with my people. So hey, get to know me.
There it is. My sister Suzette Speaks as always. All right, look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to jump right into some conversation. Let's talk about what the Supreme Court, why they are skeptical, about a particular law that may be a loophole, and it may lead to some January 6th rioters not being held fully accountable for their actions on that fateful day. So stay with us. That conversation comes up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Oh, man, we got a lot to cover. So I'm joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks. Kicking off today's discussions. Let's first talk about the Supreme Court. And they had that big case review yesterday, Suzette. And the word is coming out of Washington, D.C., that they appear to be more divided around this issue about this, whether January 6th rioters actually broke the law on January 6, 2021, when they stormed the Capitol, and that if they truly disrupted congressional business, And this is a law really rooted in obstruction. And what some people are saying, legal scholars and political scholars and scientists are saying, that at the root of this could be the one case that opens it up, whether Trump himself may find to be, being held liable for what we saw on January the 6th. I want to share just a little bit from the reporting from NPR, and then Suzette, get your take on this. But take a look at this, folks. The U.S. Supreme Court appeared divided on Tuesday, with conservatives expressing various degrees of skepticism about the statute used to prosecute more than 350 people involved with the January 6th riot at the Capitol. At least partially on the line at Tuesday's argument was the Justice Department's effort to punish some of those it deems the most serious participants in the Capitol riot. Roughly 1/4 of those prosecuted so far for their roles in the Capitol invasion have been charged with violating a federal statute enacted after the Enron scandal in 2002, a scandal that involved massive document shredding and fraud. Suzette, break it down for us like we're in elementary school here. Which is it? Is my understanding of this being that at the root of this is whether this is a form of obstruction? Is that at the root of this case, or is there something else here?
No, you're right, Farajii. Thank you for that recap. So basically, we have one of the January 6th defendants who has brought this particular argument forward, and the Supreme Court in oral arguments yesterday decided to hear it. And just, it's very interesting, y'all. You can hear the audio. Of course, no cameras are allowed inside the Supreme Court during arguments, but they are recorded and you can hear them online on YouTube anywhere you look. But Joseph Fisher, who was a former police officer who participated in the January 6th riot on the Capitol that was trying to prevent the peaceful passage of power from Donald Trump, who lost the election to Joe Biden, as we recall, was one of those folks caught on the Capitol, and he was a part of all of the I would just call it the invasion of the Capitol that we saw. So the argument is being made now on his behalf, but as you stated, it will affect almost everybody, including the president, if this argument stands. So it has gone through the appeals process. People are asking, like, why hasn't this been decided before? Well, it kind of worked its way through the court system, as it should take some time. But what he's arguing is that the statute that is being used to has been used to successfully convict, as you said, over 350 people of obstruction, that it is not properly being applied. And why is he saying that? As you stated, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which is where this is coming from, was passed in 2002 in the wake of the Enron scandal. And if people are too young and don't remember what Enron was, it was a horrible, what could I call it, implosion of a business where during that time, in order to cover up their tracks, a lot of the executives, people had, that top tier that worked there, started shredding a bunch of documents and trying to hide things from the feds. So the argument is being made that when this was written, it was not intended to imply that obstruction could mean physical obstruction. The argument is being made that obstruction only applies to documents. Now, this is the key kind of interpretation, and whether or not it will go one way or another is what this hinges on. So, for example, President Trump might not therefore be excluded because he had involvement in the allegedly in the fake electors scheme, which was sending documents to and from the Capitol to try to get people who were not the real electoral college members to certify that these were the electoral college votes. So he has kind of like a document implication. But for the other defendants, they're trying to say that the Justice Department has too broadly interpreted this particular statute. Now, this is taking me back to law school, where we're looking at, with what they say, the plain letter of the law. What does it say on its face? What do those words on that paper mean? Then you also look at what was going on when it was written. What was Congress's intent when they wrote this law? And of course, like I said, it was during the Enron scandal, and then it really was specifically to try to prevent people from, when they were involved in kind of obstruction of an investigation, from destroying documents. However, there's one word in the statute that kind of, in the oral arguments yesterday, you could hear Justice Kagan, you could hear others kind of go back and forth on whether or not otherwise obstruct, or I'm paraphrasing, any other behavior falls into that word's otherwise obstruct proceeding. So or some kind of federal proceeding. So when you look at that otherwise, it is kind of up for interpretation, which is why it's in front of the Supremes, whether or not that means behavior beyond what the original intent of the law was, which was kind of documents-based. And then you heard in questioning from all justices, does that mean if there was a peaceful protest outside of, some sort of federal proceeding, would that be obstruction? And you've heard one side state, no, the Justice Department has never used it in that way, and there's no reason to believe they will. And then others are saying, where is the line drawn? And other Supreme Court justices are saying, where is the line drawn? Are we now going to allow for an extension of this law that was not the original intent of the law? So that's the argument that's being had. And so we have, again, very divided Supreme Court. Conservative justices in some of their questioning sound somewhat sympathetic to the idea that this law could have been overly applied, too far applied. What would that mean? Remember, as you just pointed out from the NPR piece, over 1,400 people have already been charged, 350 with this particular statute applied to their charges, including Mr. Trump, where 2 of his charges stem from this statute, that the case with Jack Smith. So it has totally put a pause on the January 6th case as it relates to Donald Trump, but it also may affect the people who have already been convicted, depending on how the Supreme Court rules. It could definitely shorten their sentences. Some people may not even go to jail on this particular charge if they're saying that it was too broadly applied to the crimes committed on January 6th.
That is crazy. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we'll continue the conversation with Suzette. I want to get your take on this crew. Post your thoughts as we're streaming live on Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page and on his YouTube channel. I would love to hear what you have to say as we talk about the case of the Supreme Court. Kind of skeptical. They heard the opening arguments in this case regarding the January 6th obstruction law and whether it's, as you heard Suzette say, being applied too broadly. That could possibly lead to getting some rioters to have to walk. This could happen. Wow. Want to hear what you got to say. Stay with us. We still got a lot more to cover in this first half of the show here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Game on. State of the Union 2024. Huge night for President Joe Biden.
This was a CVS receipts type of night.
He dragged the hell out of the Supreme Court. And he said, y'all gonna see the power of women.
Trump's brain is melting as we speak.
We want to organize from a place of strength.
There's no confusion whatsoever about what they've done and what they plan to do.
What Donald Trump is doing is presenting a fallacy.
He is convincing them that he's all in it for them, when in fact he's all in it for himself.
We do not feel Joe Biden, in spite of the success that have taken place during this administration economically. There are too many things where we do not feel like he's had our back.
You should also be investing in the barbershops and the beauty salons and the hookah bars and the folks who are going to the club, and there's a way to actually get them registered because we've done it before. But if you don't have folks who understand that dynamic, then you're missing a big opportunity.
So we said we just celebrated. For what? Why don't you go to Selma to celebrate rather than recommit yourself to the fight if the very thing we went to celebrate has been gutted?
Republicans did not support a lot of the bills that were necessary to keep the country fluid. You can't only love your country when you win, right?
Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
This was absolutely the knockdown, drag out that we were really waiting.
Black voters are the base. They're the most important base of the Democratic Party. There was very few language in this speech. At the time, we see an attack on Black history, attack on DEI. The end of the BLM racial reckoning thing has come to a complete end because there was nothing in this speech for that.
Our movement has never been grounded in two-party politics in this country. All of our movements ultimately get co-opted by a state that is anti-black.
They called the old because they knew the way, and they called the young because they were strong. And I believe there is a good combination of that. But we can have ideas and we can have visions and dreams, but we have to have our young people also working beside us because they are strong and they will run that race and they will run it to the end.
Activists, organizers, and young people have been pushing this administration to be on the right side of history and to do something about the issues that they care about.
While the Ukraine and Palestine are critical issues, they are not the only global issues.
Not a single black person who should ever let it come out their mouth that I'm tired. Because there is somebody else who came before us who didn't stop fighting.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks, licensed attorney, media host, as well as political contributor here on Black Star Network, as we talk about the case of January 6 rioters and how SCOTUS is now in the process of reviewing one case that may create a domino effect of whether others who were involved in the storming of the Capitol may be either looking at jail time, being prosecuted, or maybe sent home. And that's the stakes. That's how high the stakes are in this particular situation. But going back to what you explained and giving us some context on what the Supreme Court is looking at, Suzette, I'm wondering, is this another way? And I mean, is by the Supreme Court being so super conservative, how much does that play into this decision making? Is this coming down to the law, or is this coming down to, partisan politics?
I do think it will come down to probably legal ideology, because when we look at this, like the Supreme Court, once again, is supposed to be nonpartisan, even though they get appointed by obviously a Democrat or a Republican president. It is supposed to look at the law and apply the law to the facts of the case. Now, in the questioning, you could just see the ideological divide. So you have Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson asking, if this is not obstruction, you're trying to stop the proceeding that allows for a presidential election to be certified. What is it if this is not obstruction on its face? And you have Justice Sotomayor saying, maybe this hasn't been applied before because we've never had a January 6th before. Right. You had on the other side, the more conservative side, you had Justice Neil Gorsuch asking questions during hearings yesterday, somewhat like if a sit-in were to disrupt a trial, like I said, at a federal courthouse, would that apply? To which some people in the audience heckled him. And you had other questions that stated, like, has this law been applied before? And they were like, yes, there's been several cases where the Justice Department, based on, destruction of documents and tampering with evidence, this has been something that has been utilized before. This is not a unique instance where they're applying it to obstruction. But again, it goes to me, legal philosophy, when you're looking at what the intent of the writers of the law meant, what it says on what they call textualists. What does the text actually say? So they're going to run into a problem because it says otherwise in there, or otherwise disrupt proceeding. So does this behavior fit in that otherwise is what is open to interpretation. But yes, the conservative bent that we see on the our national bench, right, where on the Supreme Court we have 6 known to be more conservative justices versus 3 much more, some people would just say moderate, not even liberal, which is moderate people. Right. It did seem from the questioning at length that there is an ideological divide as to how this was interpreted and if it was interpreted properly. So remember also on the DC bench, the Court of Appeals, remember you have the trial court, the lower court, then it gets appealed. On that appellate court, the 14 out of the 15 justices before it went up to the Supremes agreed with the Justice Department's interpretation of the law. You had one who was hearing this defendant's case who disagreed with the interpretation. So you even see across that appeals court, the DC appeals court, there was kind of a unanimity in terms of how this was interpreted, saying like, of course, this would include this type of obstructive behavior, but you have only one judge who now questioned it. And that is what allowed it to now be appealed. And the Supreme Court had agreed to hear it. And so we should have a decision on what this actually means. And if it was this law was appropriately applied to the January 6th defendants as it relates to obstruction. Now, Mr. Trump has more than just an obstruction charge, and so do many of the others. But with regards to that particular charge, you even had one defendant, he was released out on like bail in anticipation for this ruling. This also stops the trial that Judge Tanya Chutkin had scheduled to begin very shortly. Now we're on hold again to see what the outcome might be. So we're expecting a ruling as late as June, and whether it allows enough time for this case, the Trump January 6th case being prosecuted by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, to commence and be heard before the election in November is quite unlikely. So it depends on, what this ruling will say. But yeah, I think there's an ideological divide on our court right now.
Wow. All right, let's go to the crew. Pastor Damon Blissett, my brother, you said, Farajii, Suzette, this sounds similar to the Crown Act law in Texas. These laws are either too broad or too narrow, and they keep finding these loopholes. You agree or disagree with that?
I think that Pastor Damon is onto something when it comes to looking at why, again, we have 14 other justices or appeals court judges that had agreed, yes, this is clearly trying to obstruct a federal proceeding. No interpretation or misinterpretation was in any way kind of detected according to those appeals judges. But you just take one. That's what I think it's more akin to like what's happening in the abortion cases, where you're finding that judge that might have a sympathetic ideology to what your outcome will be. And once you find out one judge, and then it gets appealed, it ends up in the lap of the Supreme Court. So I do think there are some similarities when it comes to what we call forum shopping, looking for judges who might agree with you ideologically, and therefore allowing you to get another bite at the apple for it to go up to the next level of courts, the appeals court, and then hopefully make it to the Supreme Court, as this particular case has now made it there. And like I said, the arguments have been heard. You can listen to it for yourself and see which judges asked what. And I think that will tell you a lot about the division among the Supreme Court justices.
Absolutely. Cindy D asked the question, Suzette, could the rioters get retried without that provision?
There is, unless they find another law that seemingly the facts of the case, the acts they committed, would qualify under another federal law to the extent of which they could apply some sort of standard of obstruction, possibly. I think if there was another federal law, and there could be, I'm not in the federal courts practicing actively, they might have applied it, but maybe they didn't think they needed to go 2 steps, because this one, which was written in 2002, was just, there and had been applied to many other cases as, recent as just in the last couple of years. So it is possible. I think what is going to happen, though, the people who are currently charged and have not pleaded guilty, because what happened is a lot of those people under that obstruction charge pled guilty. So if it goes the other way, they could be released. Retried again, we can't have double jeopardy. Obviously, it can't be under the same law, but it would, I don't know how, and again, what other possible federal statutes could apply, but we're not supposed to have double jeopardy if convicted or tried on a specific statute. So that's to say, if they found a new statute to apply, possibly. But if it goes the other way, where the Supreme Court rules that it was too broadly applied and that this law was not intended to mean every act of obstruction up until writing, it just meant document destruction. I don't know if that is, again, reasonable to look at the text of the law. What does it say? What do the words obstruction mean? you know, and that word otherwise also in the statute, otherwise having disrupted and I'm paraphrasing, a federal proceeding, does what they did fit in that otherwise? So I don't know, Miss Cindy, that will be left to be seen, but I think it will, if it's going in the direction and the Supreme Court does rule that this was an overextension of this particular law, a lot of people are going to have their jail sentences cut or not maybe face any convictions on this particular charge, but they may find other charges for them.
Wow.
I know it has a broad, I'm talking, and then it will be 2. I think Mr. Trump has 2 obstruction, but Jack Smith has other charges as well. But again, if it goes that way, it may drop those obstruction charges as applied by this law. But again, they might be able to find some different case law or statutes to apply. So
that is crazy. That is crazy.
It is going to be upheaval. It's huge. If they rule
this is crazy. This is crazy. All right, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears a little bit from talking about the situation of the January 6th rioters and talking about another breakdown where we're going to give you some of the latest news around the resignation of Rainbow Push leader Pastor Haynes. And what happened? He was only in the position for 3 months, and now he decided to walk away. We'll have that conversation up next. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
I need you to scream for your new beginning. 5, 4, 3, 2. I need you to shout for it. I need you to shout for it. It won't always be like this. Sooner or later, it's gonna work in your brother's favor, in your sister's favor. They shall not die. They shall not die. They shall not die. I want you to embrace somebody and tell them welcome to the greatest season of your life. Hug somebody, welcome.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Peace and welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister Suzette Speaks as we talk about the big conversations that folks are having. Suzette, I'm trying to figure out what is going on. What is going on? All right, so yesterday, Brother Roland, he talked a little bit about this, the fact that Dallas pastor Dr. Frederick Haynes III, who serves as the senior pastor of a church in North Texas, he was appointed to be in the leadership role for Rainbow Push Coalition. He has officially stepped down from that leadership, only being on the job for about 3 months. After 3 months, he decided to step down. This is what the pastor said in the statement that he made. Take a look at this, folks. He made the mention that he made the surprise announcement on yesterday, saying he would be leaving the new job. He said in his statement, last year, when Reverend Jackson, a personal hero icon, a leader who has changed the world, tapped me to succeed him as president and CEO of Rainbow Push, It's been my honor to serve, and for that, I will also be grateful. However, today I submitted my resignation as president and CEO. He said that he will continue to honor the work of Rainbow Push and Reverend Jackson and look forward to working together with them. Huh?
Grand opening, grand close. Lord have mercy.
What?
Wow. So when I saw it come down, I was on Instagram and I seen it come on Roland's feed, and I was like, "What?" Like I literally stopped and was like,
"What is?"
Serious.
The thing about it, though, is that he doesn't give us a reason as to why he decided to step down. It's only been 3 months now. Of course, Rainbow Push accepted the resignation, but what was that?
Yeah. It's a lot of speculation, so we both have to be very careful. I know that
I am being very careful. I am careful.
Been said, but we're not on the inside, of course, and we respect the Reverend Jackson and his iconic role and what he has done to move us as a people forward. Of course, it is not a secret looking at Reverend Jackson that he unfortunately was on the decline as far as his health, and there was a need to transition to new leadership. I think this has opened up the door to a bigger conversation. I know Brother Roland Martin went and, he can say stuff that I can't when it comes to looking at this, because he knows the folks. He knows Dr. Haynes and Reverend Jackson and the like. These are folks who are my heroes, but it does open a kind of conversation when it comes to transition of leadership, especially when it comes to our Black kind of historic organizations. And do we have the openness when it comes to new leadership in allowing them to pursue their vision for the organization? In other words, are we prepared to transition when it comes time? And I'm thinking about, whether it's our historically Black fraternities and sororities, when it comes to, NAACP and other civil rights organizations. And when it's time to see that generational shift, sometimes we see a lot of pushback. And I guess I could just speak of it in terms of what I've seen, just in terms of jobs and the careers that we all seek. I hear stories all the time when it comes to our millennial and Gen Z feeling as if maybe our older counterparts are not necessarily ready for us or open to us when it comes time to pass the torch. And I think this has been talked about when it comes to Congress, even as an institution, and the Congressional Black Caucus. Again, our heroes are still serving, right? Well into their 80s. And the conversation around, when is it appropriate, and are we seeing an openness to allow for the next generation to step forward, right? When it comes to local office, when it comes to national office, when it comes to private business, and when it comes to historically storied civil rights organizations. Are we ready for this conversation? We've seen what Reverend Jackson has done, but it's well into his senior years before we've seen a transition. And now for a gentleman like the distinguished Dr. Freddie Haynes, who has served, mind you, 53 years at his church. So he don't have a problem with longevity and commitment, right? So just to put that out there, the Friendship West Baptist Church, he has been the senior pastor there for a very long time, since 1983. So looking at that, Reverend Jackson has served the organization was founded 50 years ago. But Freddie Haynes has served since 1982, because I'm like, that's not 50 years. But it's a good amount of time is what I'm saying.
Right. We got
the point being, we don't know what happened behind closed doors, right? We don't know what really is being exchanged. But there is I think Brother Roland highlighted it, that there might have been some tension between the old guard and the new guard. And when it comes to, and this is speculative, Reverend Jackson, maybe the people around him not being ready for new leadership and allowing someone else to take the helm and again lead the organization how and to where they think the best vision will be for the organization. So I don't know. It's a bigger conversation now.
You know what though? I'm so happy that we're having the conversation. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head, Suzette. And I think you and I in particular, we have been in probably enough spaces, enough rooms in our respective work, right, where we have seen this hesitation from the old guard transitioning into the new guard. I know I have. I've seen this in.
They don't want to. Not everybody want to show you the game.
I'm sure you have, because you move around in a lot of different spaces, right? With a lot of different peoples, decision makers, power brokers, whatever. But I've seen it. I've seen it in media. I've seen it in politics. I've seen it in business. I've seen it in community organizations. Like the passing of the torch, and this has always been something very passionate for me, coming out of organizers, activist space, where we constantly ran up against walls because people did not see the value of younger leadership, more progressive ideas. They did not want to invest the time to really stand with you and to say, you know what, I see something in you that I want to put a little extra something on, taking you under the wings, all of that. We have a very serious problem within the Black community of doing this. I've seen it time and time again. In my years of working in activism and organizing, 20 plus years, I've seen this time and time again. Even if we've had this conversation in this regard, when we talk about voting for people, I had one little young brother. He was like in his 20s. He was mayor of a small town in the South, and you know he's open to it. But the fact that a lot of us, we're still not completely sure that when we see a 25-year-old, 30-year-old, 35-year-old, whether they can do a certain job, we still question their credentials. Yeah. We question. The only thing we don't question is their passion. But we question whether they're going to stand the test of time, their longevity, right? And it's so sad. It's so sad. And I mean,
yeah, it's
Reverend Jackson has been around for. Say it again.
I say no. It's very common. It's very common.
It's very common.
We can sugarcoat, but let's just be real. We want to assume that everybody wants to replicate themselves, but that's not. I have not found.
That's not the truth. Come on, Susan, you're talking to my soul.
In politics, that you say, you would think people would want to open doors, high five you.
Man, nobody. No.
That's a very rare spirit. It exists. There are great people.
Hey, look. Let me add something. Let's throw a little more. Let's throw a little bit more fire into this, and then we're gonna take our next pause. We are super liberal and progressive until it comes to that position. Then we get real conservative. I'm going to say that again. We get super liberal and progressive. We talk the ideas. We talk about next generation.
Farajii, don't get me in trouble, Farajii. Let's go to the.
Don't get me in trouble. Listen, let me tell you, because I've seen it. And it's
talking about in all professional spaces. Oh my!
All the way until you talking about, hey man, you going to step down? Then we become conservative and Republican as hell.
They won't even let you be their assistant because they're afraid. It's real. Let's take the break, Farajii.
Let's take a break, folks. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation. What's your take on this, crew? We're talking about passing the torch. We're talking about Pastor Haynes stepping down from leadership at the Rainbow Push Coalition. I would love to hear what you got to say, crew. Post your comments in the chat, and let's continue to talk about it. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister Suzette Speaks as we talk about Pastor Frederick Haynes III stepping down as the leader of Rainbow Push Coalition only after 3 months of being into position. There was such high hopes and a lot of excitement and great expectations for the pastor to lead this civil rights organization in the future. And then, unfortunately, this happened with this surprise announcement that came down yesterday. Let me share what Culture Crew members are saying. Tiana, you said, I encountered this situation when I was a union rep. None of the senior members wanted me to be union reps. Yes, we see this all the time. We see this all the time. Lana, my sister, you said vote them all out. It's falling. And they are the cause. His children didn't even want to, speaking of Reverend Jesse Jackson, or his wife, if that isn't a sign. Wow. Cindy D, you say, can Rainbow Push keep hope alive? Reverend Jesse Jackson did. Yeah, that's very real. And Vic Wicked, Vic, my guy, you said the old guard don't want to move out the way. Gotta move and let the new leaders lead. And again, this is all speculation because, and here's the problem. Here's the problem. And this is what, and I think who else? I think I saw Taylor. You made this point saying that why don't we invite Pastor Haynes to come on to the show to speak?
He's not going to speak. He's a high road type of dude. That's why we are having to speculate. I know that's a great point. We could, but we would if we could. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. He put out a statement. It just broke yesterday, so he put the statement out. He's not going to speak. I'm gonna tell you. I know this new stuff a little bit, y'all. The man is not going to speak. Now, will he go into detail? We probably never will find out what actually happened behind closed doors. He's not going to speak. And so can he quash the rumor mill, Taylor? He could if he speaks out. But the problem
we don't know
is
if there's any kind of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, those type of things.
Very real.
That's why, again, sometimes people in the organization leak stuff more so than the individuals
right.
who are involved directly. I saw other comments in the chat. Shout out to the chat. And let me get my math right. 40 plus years for Dr. Haynes, 50 years of existence for Rainbow Push. Sorry, math wasn't bad there. But looking at it, I think it was who suggested why didn't one of his kids take it up? It sounds like, or based on reports, Reverend Jackson's son, Yusuf Jackson, will serve as the chief operating officer of Rainbow Push. Not sure if that will be a permanent or temporary, but that was a statement that was released by the organization, and after they had accepted Dr. Haynes' resignation. But we know, though, that there are certain things that, again, it doesn't have to be specific to this particular instance, but that are issue to our community as a whole. But this one, it hits home for so many of us because of how we've seen it play out in real life. I think it was Pastor Damon Blissett say, hey, it was in church like this too. When it comes to the same pastor and going through to the next pastor, it's like they have to be almost, on their deathbeds to give way for, and we need the mentorship, new leadership to be mentored and to be brought up so that they understand, what goes on with all this responsibility. But instead, there's always, this kind of vacuum kind of mentality. Well, when I'm gone, y'all figure it out. But we can't make enough progress with that type of mindset and mentality. But yeah, I think if you talk to millennials, if you talk to and I think it's Gen Y and Z, this is very common. This is very common. And again, not everybody has this spirit, so we're not going to paint everybody from our brothers and sisters who are, I guess, older boomers and greater generation. But I think I have maybe a theory as to why, because sometimes I think within our community, a lot of times we might have the public visibility, but we may not have the financial stability of our counterparts. So when you think of, counterparts, for example, in the white community that maybe can give way and step aside so that you have 3 and 4 generations of, like, say, for example, large companies like Ford and other companies, their family plans for this. Succession planning is a thing. But for some reason, maybe we have a more, and it might not be in every case, but I was just thinking aloud, as far as economic challenges that prevent us from wanting or allowing us to have others step forward in a timely fashion so that the transfer of knowledge goes forth in a way that allows the next generation to benefit from having, the pastor emeritus or whoever.
But we struggle with that, Suzette.
So it's real. It's real.
It's a real struggle. And Brother Damon said, Farajii, Suzette, many pastors died in the pulpit. That's a shame. And I'm glad you brought that up, Brother Damon, because that is a real shame. We see it not just in the church, we see it in the civil rights organizations, political organizations, businesses, as you pointed out. That's a shame. Because you can't say, well, I'm all in for next generation. I'm all in for opening the doors and stuff. And then you don't really properly prepare. And it's really, because of my years of seeing this, it's not about money. It's not about status. It's not about politics. It's the heart. It's the heart, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't give up the ghost in your mind.
Some people
you think that's the only thing, that you're the only person that can do the job the way you do it. It's the heart. You know what I'm saying? And this is the type of stuff. I mean, we think this is not a black thing. Hell, we're looking at this with the president right now.
Well,
this is something with the heart. Stephanie Humphrey channel, you checked in. Good to hear from you, sis. You said, if you don't mind, I don't think it looks bad. Sometimes things feel right at the time, but once we get into the inner workings, we see it isn't right for us. It's not uncommon.
I don't think it reflects bad on Dr. Haynes. I don't think so. I think it actually reflects kind of bad on, or maybe interpreted to be a problem with the organization. For a man, again, who has spent 40-some years pastoring, senior pastoring over 13,000 members, successfully kind of impacting his community where he was. I agree with you. Sometimes when you step into a situation, you realize, whoa, this is, again, because there was no transition, so to speak, you're like, wait a minute, look at this. This is a way bigger elephant than I could chew, like with one piece at a time. So maybe this isn't for me. Again, a lot of the leaders around a person makes a big difference too. So whether you have that support once you step into that role, I think also can make a difference, not only in this case, but just in cases of transition in general. But yeah, I do think, I don't know, you might question him, but I think more people will probably question what's going on at the organization, rightfully or wrongly. But I think it doesn't, to me, 3 months, that 90 days, he was like, no. Let me go back to my pulpit.
That's the point. Hey, Suzette.
Let's see what's up. Yeah.
Just to throw a little levity into conversation. That's only a probation period.
He said, you know what?
My man said at the end of the probationary period, I'm out. I'm done.
And I mean, maybe it just wasn't, it could be personalities. It could be so many different things. We just don't know. But I do think it makes a difference for a lot of us who are seeking leadership, and everybody, you got to step out there. You got to go out there. I'm talking about in law practice, the amount of people that have not been mentors. When they talk a good game, they'll have lunch with you, but that's about it. And I wonder sometimes too, when I've had conversations with friends that talk about, maybe they came up on the rough side and it took them 20 years to figure out the game, and they think you need to spend that time instead of giving you, I don't even call it the keys to the kingdom, but any type of shortcut to allow you to go forward. And then others maybe have not really figured out the keys to the kingdom and don't want you to know they haven't figured it out. So I've had that type of situation too, especially in law practice, where trying to figure out, especially at the beginning, how to do things, and people were just really mean and kind of all over the place. But several people came back to me and was like, Sue, maybe she don't want you to know what's going on in her office for real. Like, there's so many different parts of why things may not work out. But I do think this is a larger trend that needs to be addressed in a healthy dialogue as to why. Again, all I'm saying is I've had conversations to many friend groups about this, and shout out to those who do open doors, who do mentor, who do sponsor, and are willing to work alongside and help another person of a different generation come through the door. We appreciate you.
And look, very quickly, I agree with you 1,000% on that analysis, and I agree with you. And I'm gonna just say this before we take our next pause. Just because you are older or you're an elder doesn't mean you are a mentor. When you're talking about being,
I've gone into spaces with Farajii where people have said to me, "Oh, you're here to take my job," and I'm like, "Hi, nice to meet you too." Like, it was so
people have said that to me, and you know what I always tell the people. I always say this to people, man, what God has for you is for you.
I don't
want what
God
has for me is for me, bro. I don't need to take your job. Look. I don't know
if it's work culture or specific to Black folks or just, corporate culture in America. I don't know.
Man, please.
But
I don't need to take nobody's job.
It's cutthroat.
Because guess what? I already know who I am, and I know what I bring to the table, and I'm going to shine regardless, bro.
I hope they get that and we all do better at this. But no, this over the last 20 you talk about, I've had this from the very beginning where people like, oh no, you're bigger than this position, let me give it to somebody else. And I'm like, why wouldn't you but they don't want you in their business and they don't want you to learn right. It's kind of scary. And that's my experience.
Absolutely. But let me just it's going to see, we're going to see if there's going to be any more conversations, but I'm not going to hold my breath that we're going to hear something from Reverend Jackson or from some, interim person. I don't think we may never hear as to what really happened behind closed doors over these 3 months. But it does open the discussion for us to have deeper, like you said, going back to your point, deeper conversations about succession plans, especially within our Black-led organizations. That is a conversation that is critical and that we need to constantly be discussing, especially in light of all of the other cultural and social changes that are happening in this country. There are so many things happening. We need to have fresh leadership in a lot of different spaces, and we need to have people there that's going to open the doors, make the ground fertile for that to happen. But we will have to see how this thing plays out. Look, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears a little bit more. On the other side, I want to talk to us about how there are a number of black alumni from the University of Florida who are actually calling on the school to reinstate its DEI policy. Suzette brought this to my attention. It's happening down in her neck of the woods. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also on the other side, in the second half of the show, we'll talk about Black Maternal Health Week and give you some ways and give you some insight as to some of the challenges and ways that Black mothers can make sure that they stay safe and healthy during pregnancy. We'll have that conversation as well. Stay with us. A lot to cover in the second half of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues.
Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere.
It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
must remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you.
All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks. And, folks, we've had a fantastic first half of the show as we talk about everything from the January 6th riots and that obstruction law to what happened at Rainbow Push Coalition. And, folks, and Suzette, so many people are checking in and having their say on that particular topic. But, again, we will continue to do our due diligence to have those conversations here on the Black Star Network around succession plans and leadership and so much more. Now, folks, if you're just tuning in, we are streaming on a number of different platforms. Make sure you go to our home website at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media. And more importantly, drop something in a bucket as we are looking for investors and stakeholders in this great mission we are embarked upon of breaking Black news and content like never before in the digital space. So your support makes a world of difference. And we thank all of those who have already donated to us here on Black Star Network. But again, you can do that at blackstarnetwork.com. Suzette, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in your neck of the woods. University of Florida Black alumni are now calling for the reinstatement of DEI programs as a way to bring some, to level the playing field for Black college students down there at the University of Florida. What's going on? How did this all kick off?
So we had a bill recently passed by our Republican-controlled state legislature that now prevents state funds from being used by state-run public universities for DEI programs. So when we think of DEI now, this attack has affected some of the largest institutions, including the state's flagship institution, the University of Florida, where I will include disclosure, I attended UF, go Gators, and have seen, even throughout my time there, the difficulties that Black students have had in just finding their place and finding their home and leaving successfully with a degree and with hopefully the same benefits of a network and a wonderful education that every other student that attends the university will have. In this instance, the legislation does not preclude private funds from being used for DEI programs. So even in the discussions I've had with, folks who were on the Tallahassee Hill lobbying and trying to prevent this legislation from going forward, I brought up the discussion around what about Black student unions? What about historically Black, fraternities and sororities? Do those count as DEI, organizations and initiatives? And it's not really, to me, clear still that they're not under threat, because they have been saying, certain state legislators have been saying, oh no, it doesn't include historically Black fraternities and sororities and BSUs and things like this, Black student unions. However, there are a lot of wraparound organizations and faculty and programs, one of which I was a part of, that help sustain first-time college students at these universities, especially at the University of Florida, right? There are programs, and they might be in other states as well, called AIM, and I was a part of a program called PACT, designed for Black students, again, who were first time in college, who did not even understand the lay of the land and the intricacies of what it meant to be a college student, how to organize your finances, how to organize your schedule, how to do things with, from registration to financial aid, how to navigate the campus. Thank goodness those programs were in place. For me, I was on campus a week before in a class packed with other minority students, predominantly Black students, trying to figure out how to be a student. And all of us, it was so wonderful to have that experience, to first and foremost already kind of develop this kind of unity among a cohort of folks just like you, freaked out just like you. We knew the campus before other students went there. We understood the bus route. We understood the dining hall. We understood all the things that go with being a college student, that if we were dropped off there, I've had friends that didn't have any DEI support or any other programs that I had the benefit of. And they talked about even their freshman year crying like their parents just left them and they had no clue really what to do. They tried to follow a couple roommates. What are you guys doing? What is next? What should I be doing now? This is a quite a daunting experience if you don't have anybody else in your family who has gone to college. Nonetheless, in this article, and we can bring it up, one of my colleagues, mentors, friends, the first Black president of the Florida Bar Association, that's the head of all the lawyers, 111,000 of us in Florida, the first Black man to hold that position, Black person, the distinguished Mr. Eugene Pettis. He's a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi. He's a mentor. He has started so many DEI programs. Even the one he has started under the Florida Bar is under attack. But he has now made public statements on behalf of a group of the Black alumni of the University of Florida to say, we need to do something, UF, raise this money. He has put out the number of 45 million to create or recreate, reestablish the programs that were already there.
Yeah, let me share this with you. Yeah. I mean, this is coming from the new group calling itself the Coalition of Concerned Black University of Florida Alumni. And they're asking, and this is comprised of more than 100 Black graduates of the school. And these are just three of the big points that they're asking for, folks. Take a look. Dedicating that 45 million, as you spoke about, Suzette, from the school's $2.4 billion endowment.
There we go.
Damn. To re-implement diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. The second thing is appoint a Black University of Florida graduate to the school's board of trustees. And the third thing is boost efforts to increase its declining Black student enrollment and hire more Black faculties. I absolutely love this, Suzette. I love it. I love it when organizations, groups come together and they lay out about 3 to 5 different points that they want to focus on. It gives us a clear look as to what they want to do. This is big. But that $2.4 billion endowment, that's what got my attention right there.
We got the money now. What if they have the will to spend it? But yeah, I after we take this break, I can talk a little bit more about this because it's so because UF is the flagship. Now, shout out to FSU, and my brother went to FSU. Everybody gonna be mad because I say this, but this is the hardest school to get into here in our state and even beyond, right? So the access this particular university grants to, again, a different network of people. Some people say you're going to college for the education. Oftentimes, it's the network that those Harvard people are paying for, right? The education is one piece, but the people that you get to know and become friends with that you end up going along life with for the rest of your life is super important as well. So when we look at that access, when we were there, it was 5% and 3% of the total student body being Black. Now, students who I know with very high GPAs, Black students cannot get in, and it's not that they're not as qualified, but again, the admissions officers that I had when we were there happened to be a combination of people, including Hispanic and Black, and they could look at students holistically. Again, some of those things now have been changed, thanks Supreme Court, and now Florida legislature signed by Ron DeSantis. So we have to work around this and find the private money.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's continue the conversation on the other side. You're tuned into The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues.
Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere.
It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks, as we talk about what Black University of Florida alumni are calling for and asking for in the space of DEI. They want DEI programs and initiatives to be reinstated at the University of Florida. And they have decided to create a new group of alumni, about 100 graduates of the University of Florida, Black graduates, have decided to come together, organize, pool their resources, and call the university to make some changes, taking just a little small part out of their $2.4 billion endowment and dedicating about $45 million to DEI initiatives and programs there at the school, and also getting a seat at the table for Black graduates to be heard and seen and the impact to be felt. And you know, when I think about this, Suzette, my thinking is, you know, how what's the likelihood, what is the probability that the University of Florida will comply to any one of those demands that was laid out by the Black alumni of the University of Florida?
Well, this initially is a letter, but I think UF responds to more so action. If you show up on their front door, how's it go? It's going to take a little bit more than this. I think the advocacy is great, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. I want to just point out, Farajii, that since the implementation of this new law that is preventing state funding, public funding for DEI positions at public universities, we saw at the University of Florida the elimination of 13 full-time positions in response to the law that was signed by Governor DeSantis, which bars universities from using state or federal money for programs that advocate, quote, for diversity, equity, inclusion, or, quote, promote or engage in political or social activism. That's very broad.
That's very
broad, right? Yeah. So me being a former member of our Student Government Association back in the day, you know, all those clubs, you know, organizations were from federal funds, right? Some of them also came from, you know, student activity and service fees, which can be distinctive because the students are paying for it as a fee to go to the school. But there are some, again, there was Institutes of Black Culture. I'm like curious now, I have to go do my research. Are these things still there? We had his Hispanic Culture Institute as well. But it made such a difference to the success of students by having these supportive and auxiliary staff members, as well as, you know, programs to support them. Again, it is very difficult for a person who does not and has never had any kind of college experience, or anybody in their family hasn't had any college experience, to go and be successful and say, here, this is how it goes. You need these things. Shout out to, and I'm thinking about the folks who helped desegregate UF. I think about folks who helped desegregate UF's law school, and the deans that we had. And this is like, I guess they were around from the 90s, 2000s, and the early 2010s. Shout out to men like Mike Powell, Dean Mike Powell, Walter Robinson, rest in peace, Dr. Shaw, rest in peace, Dr. Scott. There were strategically like Black men who were leading in the administration, such that, again, it matters who was in the leadership of any organization, but at a top tier university, they could promote a vision that allowed for them actually having, you know, the power in the admissions process, power in the dean of students role, to actually support the students that they know would need more support in terms of how they apply programs and funds, so that all students have the same opportunity of being successful. But without these specific faculty members, specific programs. When I think about all of us who graduated together and how important it was to have these faculty members when you had problems in your class. I knew I could go to Dean Scott. I knew I could go to Dean Shaw when I needed letters of recommendations, when I needed, to figure out how to deal with a rogue teacher or, teacher assistant. They were our sounding boards. These were our home away from home, our parental figures that made sure that we were sustained and had the best access to resources just like every other student. But because we didn't have that institutional knowledge based in our families, we would have been, many people would have not been as successful as we are now. So I applaud again this effort. It might take some rallies. I'm not sure where it will go from here, but it's important again to have leadership input, that admissions process leadership input. To make sure, like I said, the 1% and 2% of the entire undergraduate student body being Black is not uncommon. And again, this is the top school here in Florida and beyond. Some would say the South, some would say Harvard of the South. It depends on who you ask. But bottom line is, everybody that's looking at the number of Black people in Florida, why wouldn't our public institutions reflect the people that they're designed to serve? And so we have a bigger issue. My tax dollars, those who live in Florida, residents who pay taxes in Florida, are looking at funding, institutions like UF. And unfortunately, they are public institutions that are not reflective of the needs of the public that they're supposed to serve. So that becomes a bigger issue. And I think we're going to get louder about it. But I think this is a very good first step, laying out demands that are concrete and attainable for the university. Now saying in the statement, and I'll just read what their spokesperson said. Through a UF spokesperson, university was required to quote, she says, Cynthia Roldan in an email said the university is, quote, required to follow the law, and the obligation to our students is to make sure that everyone is welcome. The University of Florida is and will always be unwavering in our commitment to universal human dignity. What does that mean, ma'am? As opposed, anyway, so through university spokeswoman Cynthia Roldan. So Emmett Smith is also a UF alumni member who has blasted the NFL great. Emmett Smith has blasted UF decision about diversity and inclusion. There's some high profile Udonis Haslam. There are people that they're trying to bring in to give this the gravitas it deserves, and it's going to take the Black alumni to come together, more than 100, and it's building, to come together to make our voices known and to push the university to give the money that they're sitting on, right? We're not asking for $2 billion, we're asking for $45 million of the $2 billion to reinstate these positions and to make this a welcoming, as they say, a welcoming campus for everyone.
And I'm sure that for those Black and alumni like yourself and others, I'm sure y'all are thinking about, if this is pulled off, if something of benefit comes to Black students, Black alumni from this effort, that this could be a model that could be used on other college campuses in states that challenge DEI in some way, respect. Now, we know Florida, where Florida stand, but then you still got a lot of other states that are questioning the value, the importance of DEI. And I think this right here just gives us even more context to that I've seen some Black folks who express saying, oh, DEI, that's nothing, that's not important stuff. But you're not understanding the network, rather, not the network, but the implications of how having laws around diversity, equity, inclusion include those from not just Black people from America, it includes women. It includes our people, our brothers and sisters coming from the Caribbean and who immigrated themselves to this part of the world, to this part of the globe, right? Like, it includes so many other different pieces. So we got to get out of this tunnel vision of saying, oh, it's this DEI, that you're talking about opening up the space and having these conversations, having programs and initiatives that's going to benefit other people outside of Black Americans, but they're still going to be considered Black. It's real simple. They're still going to be considered Black. And of course, like I said, women. For Black women, what happens to Black women, and when y'all decide, say, hey, you know what, I want to do this, I want to do that, but you don't have the policy, you don't have the support that you need. You don't have the foundation to work from. And so, it opens up that conversation. But I really do hope that those brothers and sisters, your colleagues, see they get some support. We're going to do it on our part here on Black Star Network. We're bringing it up. But at the end of the day, awareness and actually getting some stuff done, two different things.
100%. Agree with you.
Two different things. So it's something that we're going to keep our eyes on. Folks, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Talking about Black women, let's talk about that this week is Black Maternal Health Week. And we're going to be checking in with our sister, Esther McCann, to talk to us about how the work that she's doing is bringing safety and security to pregnant Black women. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks. And Suzette, you got another special guest. I love when you bring people on. Absolutely love it, Suzette. So you have a very special guest that you wanted us to talk to as we have this conversation, as we do our part to recognize Black Maternal Health Week. And folks, I want you to do the same thing as well. Make sure y'all check out all the latest news and information about why it's important for us to have Black Maternal Health Week and why it's important for us to have these conversations. And we are going to be joined by a very, very special guest, a sister that is doing her part to make sure that Black women are getting the necessary support and they are found safe during their time of pregnancy. And I want to bring my sister Suzette back on very quickly and to introduce our next guest. Suzette, this is a sister you brought to our attention. So I was like, let's talk about it. It's important. Who are we going to have joining us in a few moments?
Esther McCann. She's the founder of the Metro Mommy Agency here in South Florida. I know her in real life and I've watched her blossom. And for those who don't know, we've been celebrating Black Maternal Health Week this past week. And if you have never heard of it, it's kind of a new, in the last few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, creation. And I want her to talk a little bit about what she does. She is a doula. If you don't know what a doula is, she will explain how we have had, especially as Black women, a rich history of midwifery in this country and helping bring babies into this world. But unfortunately, that history has been kind of interrupted. So she, among many others, are working to create safer deliveries for Black mothers. We can put the statistic up, if you don't mind, about what we're looking at currently. Currently, Black women are 3 times more likely, according to the CDC, to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. Multiple factors contribute to these disparities, such as a variation in quality healthcare, underlying chronic conditions, structural racism, and implicit bias. Social determinants of health prevent many people from racial and ethnic minority groups from having fair opportunities for economic, physical, and emotional health. So we want to talk about what we can do to disrupt that pattern with Miss Esther McCann.
Esther, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. How you feeling this afternoon, sis? Oh, we got you on mute?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm so grateful to be here on this call with you all today. Thank you to everyone who's here to listen and to learn. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Well, I thank Suzette for inviting you, and it sounds like you're doing some phenomenal work with Metro Mommy Agency, and that's the website, folks. And we want you to, check that out to get more information about how you can, if you find yourself pregnant or if you have a friend or family member that is pregnant, to get some real good information about making sure that they stay safe and supported during this time. So what was my question, and I don't want to take up the conversation because this is all about you and Suzette and everything, but I do want to just throw this out there to start. What was the inspiration in creating the Metro Mommy Agency?
Oh, wow. So definitely my children. I'm actually a mom of 4. And
okay, awesome.
Yeah, and I had them all with midwives, all out of the hospital birth setting. And so while I can empathize with what we're experiencing here in America, I actually did not have the experience that Black women are having here. I had wonderful support from someone who listened to me. The midwife was very intentional about making sure I had childbirth education. And because I lived in Florida, we have the luxury of having access to 3 different types of midwives here. We have licensed midwives, certified professional midwives, and we also have certified nurse midwives here. And so I had a licensed midwife here in Florida, and I found myself in my 3rd pregnancy living outside of Florida in Alabama. And if you know anything about Alabama, it's a lot a bit racist. And
Wait, I like how you said that. Look at Suzette's face.
Yeah, I make faces. I do. I'm very expressive. And I found myself feeling like this is probably going to be a different scenario if I even dared to try, because at the time, this was back in like 2015 or so, 2014, I'm sorry, where it was actually illegal for me to go and seek care from a midwife in Alabama, because I absolutely had to have an OB present or else that midwife could lose their license. So we had those types of regulations, and a lot of that still persists today. We have a wonderful Black midwife, Dr. Midwife, out in Alabama trying to build a birth center, and she's facing similar, racist, very discriminatory practices in Alabama. So long story short, I knew enough about birthing in Florida to say, hey, I know I have options. I went to UM, I got a degree. I know I can choose what I would like to have when it comes to my birth, and I don't have to, just, settle for less. So I did my research and I found a midwife in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I don't know if anybody's in Tennessee, but they have some freer laws there and more midwives there. And so I was able to access a midwife there who helped me to see after I gave birth. It was a wonderful 6-hour labor, water birth experience. She helped me to see at my 5-week appointment that despite the fact that I moved 3 times in the pregnancy, despite the fact that I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm just a mom, I'm a Black mom, and I have 3 kids, what am I doing with my life? She made me ask questions, right? Deeper questions to help me understand I have a purpose. And I knew my purpose was being on the playground, talking to these moms about birth, helping them navigate their own birth experience, helping them process birth trauma. And because of that, she said, while I was crying about what am I going to do with my life, she said, consider becoming a doula or a midwife or, childbirth educator. And so I chose doula back in 2015. And since then, I've been, running and in this work, deep in this birth work. And this is where I choose to stay. So
fantastic.
That is awesome.
I'm proud of you, sis. Talk about what a doula is. We don't want to leave anyone out, and what you do to train them through your company, Metro Mommy Agency.
Absolutely. So a doula is a trained professional who can support you prenatally during your pregnancy and also support you during the birthing process. So they're by your side or at your bedside, helping you get comfortable, relax, breathing techniques, helping you to focus on making clear decisions and ensuring that you have what we call informed consent before you decide on any interventions. And then we also provide what we call postpartum doula support in home, visiting you at home, checking in. How are you doing? Adjusting with your newborn, adjusting with breastfeeding and infant feeding, and just, how are you doing with your feelings, right? How are you really doing? We get to answer that question. And this is something traditionally we've known when we think about our culture and Black culture, period. We've always had a woman, supporting us when we are giving birth, right? That's kind of what our ancestors did. And so in the same vein, we encourage doulas to be a part of this process, especially in a very medicalized system. And so what I'm working on is to address these high infant mortality rates, maternal mortality rates, and the fact that these things keep persisting in our Black communities all across our nation and even across the globe, really. And the way that I do that is to say, let's make sure we have enough doulas on hand, on site, trained, ready to go, resilient, mentoring these doulas, training them, and partnering with other organizations to train them so that we can develop a stronger and larger workforce, right, to fill in the gaps. We don't see the changes in the healthcare system really improving. We've had a lot of shortages, whether it's OBs, obstetricians, right, or nurses that are like per diem or traveling nurses. We don't have stability in our healthcare system right now. And so we need to stop the bleeding. We need to make sure we have emotional support for these families, physical support, and somebody who's always going to be in their corner and have their best interests in mind.
Esther and Suzette, we got to take another quick pause. But when we come forward, I want to know, I know this is a type of work that speaks to our natural, I would say, getting back to like the old school way of having children and just being pregnant. And I'm wondering, Esther, are you finding that a lot of Black women are now opting for this type of support in pregnancy instead of the traditional Western medicine? Are we seeing a sort of revolution in this? So I want to get your take on that. And crew, I wanted you to join us in the conversation as we check in, of course, with our very special guest, Esther McCant from Metro Mommy Agency, to talk about how she is doing the work of supporting and making sure that Black women who are going through pregnancy are safe and secure. Folks, post your comments in the chat and we'll continue the conversation on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks, and Suzette's very special guest, our sister Esther McCant from Metro Mommy Agency. She is the founder of the organization, the agency that is working to support Black women during their pregnancy and, more importantly, providing services, doula services, midwife services, to make sure that they are going through their pregnancy in the most healthy and safest way. And not trying to dominate the conversation here.
No, you are. This is for everybody. That's so great.
But Esther, I'm wondering, are you finding that there are more Black women, and you could also include other women from other places, other ethnicities, but are you finding that more Black women are starting to reconsider going through this process of having a doula, going through this process of having more natural births? Are we seeing the numbers working in that? Is there like a small revolution brewing when it comes to this?
Let's say I hope so, because right now
Okay.
we still have majority, 98% of births happening in hospital settings, only 2% happening outside of hospital settings. And what I
Okay.
have noticed is a focus on the hospitals wanting to incorporate certified nurse midwives into their practice and in their care models, which we know is ideal to reduce the risk of maternal mortality and infant mortality all over the globe. We know this, right? There's other countries that have made midwifery care the standard, right? And so what I have noticed in terms of the folks who are coming to me, and I like to say I've served families from every continent across the globe, except Antarctica, right?
Right.
And every single family that comes across, they sometimes have a story to tell about a previous birth experience, previous trauma, previous discriminatory practices, racism, feeling not heard, feeling ignored. And so we oftentimes are hearing that story and we are helping to guide them to make better choices about where they're going to choose to give birth. And they trust us.
Just jumping in here, talk about the history that Black women in the United States of America have when it comes to being at the bedside of those who were pregnant for decades, white, Black, otherwise, and how those sisters, how they got pushed to the sidelines because of the, let's call it the medical establishment, as being seen as not as worthy of the bedside as they once were. Talk about that history and how it changed.
Yeah. So, I have to always give credit where credit is due. I want to thank Jamara Amani, a local Black midwife here in South Florida, who really put me, put game and let me know what it's really like in terms of the history. And what we know is that Black women have traditionally, in the role of midwives, supported the birth of not only Black families, but also white families. And until we had OBs come into the scene and hospital systems come into the scene, it was very normal to have a midwife support a birth at home, right? And so what we saw was that historically, because of these discriminatory practices, there was a lot of propaganda. There were a lot of campaigns that were done to just ensure that we could drag Black women, Black midwives, particularly in the dirt, right, in the past. And what would happen is they would say things like they were, not clean, they didn't practice good hygiene. And I remember reading about this also in college in biology about how the hygiene of, certain doctors, they wouldn't wash their hands when they would touch cadavers, right? And then they would go and touch other people. And so we saw issues there as well. And I think systemically in certain states, right? Certain states that are, we have our southern states and our southern state issues. Where they are heavily populated by Black people, right? And certain practices happen to exclude the care that they would ideally need, especially from Black midwives. And so we used to have thousands of midwives here and plenty of Black midwives here in Florida, but now we're down to a very minimal number. You're talking about, I want to say under 40. For sure. And we need more Black midwives, and so I just want to encourage those who are watching to, double back and circle back with Southern Birth Justice Network. They're doing some amazing work. They're also part of the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, and they do a lot of work. They're the ones who originated, of course, the Black Maternal Health Week 7 years ago, and why we can continue to build and organize and increase the awareness about Black maternal health here in our country.
That's interesting.
Talk about how to get certified, because you certify people via Zoom, via real in-person classes, etc. Talk about what you're doing and the number of midwives you hope to put out there to the world.
Yeah, so midwifery is something that I do want to take a path for myself in the future. But I am currently a doula. I've been a doula for about 8 years. I'm a maternal health consultant. And so right now my role is to train and mentor. So I partner with Southern Birth Justice Network to train doulas. I'm hoping to partner really soon with March of Dimes and also Common Sense Childbirth Institute, also based in Florida, to ensure that we are training more doulas to be on the workforce. And so with mentorship for me, what that looks like is really helping them fast track their careers. It does not have to be a situation where you get trained and then you never get certified, right? We want folks to be able to get certified. Not that certification means that you're a better doula or anything like that, but we know that certain payer structures require it, certain payer structures such as Medicaid, which will cover some doula support in certain states, may require certification. So we want to make sure that economically we're able to stand and sustain ourselves. And then also, I would just say, it's really important that community-based doulas are very important to the community in that they're often coming from the community that they're wishing to serve, which means that they're experiencing the same issues that the communities are experiencing. Housing issues, transportation, poor access to healthcare, poor access to education that will really, advance them. And so we want to make sure that we are in step with that in terms of providing wages that are livable. Not only here in Florida, but all across. And so we're grateful for changes in California where doulas can get paid $3,000 per client, and other states that are like following suit. And we're hoping states like Florida and those who have high, Black populations can do the same as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me just get a couple of comments from our culture crew here. Corinna, our sister Suzette, she said proper birthing methods aside from laying on your back would avoid women from needing an I can't even say this word. What is the SPCO? Man, I feel crazy. I can't say this word.
Corinna's comment. Hold on.
Yeah.
No.
How does the episiotomy.
Episiotomy.
There we go.
When they cut,
yes.
right?
Episiotomy. She said these doctors always want to cut us.
And talk about C-sections too. How the high level of C-section is often unnecessary.
Let me tell you why I really can't stand C-sections, right? So I'm Haitian. Shout out to all my Haitians out there. My mom was able to have 3 children, right? 2 of which were born in Haiti, right? And God bless Haiti, and prayers out for Haiti right now. And when she came to America, she had me, right? In 1986. I'm an 86er, cancer baby. And what happened was she ended up having a C-section. Right. And when I think about why it was necessary, all I could think about is my birthday's on a holiday. I'm a 4th of July baby. Right. And so sometimes, yes, people are, so lucky to have a vaginal birth on a holiday, but it always stuck with me. Why did she have to have that and land in certain morbidities as a result? Right. Things that changed the quality of her life, things like hypertension and diabetes, right, as a result of some of these issues post a cesarean. But I want people to know it is a major abdominal surgery. You don't want to have one unless it's necessary. And when people elect to do so, you want to make sure that you're in a healthy place, that you understand where your hemoglobin levels are, because there's going to be some expected blood loss. And we just want to make sure that folks understand on the other side of the really high cesarean rates is the reality that there are many people who are still having vaginal births here successfully. And so as a doula, my role is to make sure that we bring back the joy to the birthing experience. So I use things like hypnobirthing, which is a technique. It's an international program that helps people have calmer, peaceful, relaxed birth experiences. People who are like sleeping through the contractions, smiling while they're birthing their babies and breathing their babies downward. Those are ways in which we help to reduce the risk of a cesarean. And we also know having a doula present helps as well. And also midwifery care as well.
That is dope. I'm learning. So that's why I'm trying to stay quiet, because I'm learning. But that is dope.
Yeah.
I want to ask her to be positive for our last couple minutes here, because this also plays in the psyche of Black women, Farajii, as it's dangerous for me to have a baby. No, it's not. Now, our morbidity rates are higher, but we still should be having kids if it's our choice. So I want to talk about some of the progress, Esther, and some of the positive outcomes that you've seen as a doula, so that people know there are ways that they can improve their healthcare outcomes by using services like yours or others when they decide to go through the birthing process.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you decide to go with a doula, we're going to make sure that in that initial consultation, we're listening for red flags. We're kind of already creating the plan that we might have should you decide to move forward. And then we are also asking you to incorporate your village, your support system. Who's going to be rubbing your back in the event that, we have to step into the bathroom for a second, right? Like who's going to be rubbing your back at home before we arrive to support you at home in person, right? And so we want to make sure that you have everything you need in play. The other thing that helps tremendously is if you are in between pregnancies or not yet pregnant on this fertility journey, for example, very important to reach out to doulas because we have different specializations. We have full spectrum doulas who cover the gamut, right? Who can help you with menstruation, help you with all kinds of things to get your body as healthy as possible so that you can maintain a healthy pregnancy as well. And then during the birthing process, we're there to support you emotionally, physically, able to help you to identify when you're getting off track, right? And keeping you calm and positive. I've had clients who, we're just jamming out, like we're jamming out to Beyonce, Renaissance. We're doing all kinds of things, right? I've had clients who've danced their babies out. I've had clients who've coughed their babies out, right? With little to no effort. And it really just takes a lot of strong mindset preparation and training. And that's really my specialty. I've done this 4 times, again, all natural on purpose. And that's the approach that I love to take is let's personalize this. Let's be intentional about all the decisions that we're making. Let's make sure we're clear on what just happened in this last prenatal visit with your provider so that we don't run into a situation that can hinder you from accomplishing your birth plan, right? And having the birth experience that you want.
This sounds so good. Very quickly, because we only got a few moments left, Esther, but what role do the men in the lives of Black women play in this process? Like whether it's the boyfriend, whether it's the brother, or whether it's the husband, what should we do? Should we be like saying to the woman, hey, maybe you should get a midwife, maybe you should get a doula, maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like what role do men play in this process?
Oh my gosh. Shout out to the men who booked me before their partners knew they needed to book me. Let's shout out to them who identified that, this is a little bit too much, right? I could see her. She's really stressed out. This birthing person is stressed out. You can help to reduce the stress by pulling us in sooner than later. Don't be last minute with it, right? Stop thinking about, oh my gosh, it's such an investment. It costs so much. If you could swing it, swing it. Stop overspending on the baby showers and the gender reveals and forgetting that the life is important, that you need an advocate in the room. Stop skipping out on going to the actual educational classes. Learn also yourself as well, right? Be included in the process and stop allowing the medical system and those providers to ignore you. Speak up when you're in that room, right? Listen, take notes, ask questions, right? And those are some of the ways that I know partners can be involved and have been involved in the process.
You dropped the mic right there.
Thank you.
Dropping the mic. I love it.
Excellent work, sis. Thank you for all that you're doing to train up doulas. Remember, you could take classes by Zoom too. Shout out to you. What's the website so people can get in touch with you?
Yes, metromommyagency.com. It's there. You'll find all the information you need. Click book a doula, fill out that interest form, schedule a consult with me. You will talk to a real person, not AI. Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming by. Thank you.
Esther, thank you so much for the work you're doing. And I think Suzette and I will both say thank you for being so good for the culture. There's so much conversation that, I had so many other questions and based on what the crew was saying, but,
we can come back. She can come back.
Yeah, she could come back. She could definitely come back and continue it. But thank you so much, Esther.
Thank you
we
so much.
appreciate you. Absolutely. Man, oh man, that was very informative.
Yeah, she was on my YouTube. Y'all want more information? Go watch my show that I did with her last night. And I'll put her on the radio. So let's go.
Listen to Suzette. Watch Suzette. Now,
please.
But no, she was dope. She was dope.
No, she knows what she's talking about, and I think it will definitely help Black women's mortality outcomes to have more practitioners like her. She was telling me about a whole network. There's a lot of people working on this, including Vice President Kamala Harris, who's very passionate about improving Black maternal outcomes. So it's stuff that we need to learn and share.
I like that. And Corinna brought up the fact that Vice President Harris has been really aggressive and very vigilant about this about this issue. But I'm so happy that she spoke about what men can do, because a lot of us are kind of like out of the loop, you know what I mean? And it's not because we don't care. It's simply because we don't know how to manage that, right? Because especially if you're dealing with a woman who has other women in the family, we assume that this is a thing that y'all know how to do best more than us. But we're finding that, and I think this is the important part, we're finding that more and more women are not supported. Whether they're not supported, they might get a couple of, some advice from their mom, but their mother they learn from a different time.
The point is, even if you do have somebody, you don't have to do it on your own. The doula makes a big difference, because when you have a doctor and you're in the most vulnerable time of your life, you feel like you have to do what the doctor says. And there are other options often to you, but you don't feel strong enough necessarily to speak up. So just know this is an alternative and an addition that can help you, be heard when you're on your birthing journey.
That is right there. Suzette, I appreciate you so much, sis. Thank you for bringing on our very special guest, Esther McCann. Folks, the name of the organization is Metro Mommy Agency. Take a look at the website, be a part of the conversation, and more importantly, learn something. Just learn something about.
She's I Can Doula on Insta. I Can Doula on Insta.
There it is right there. All right, Suzette, thank you so much. We'll certainly check you out on your radio show and all that you're doing, but thank you for being so good for the culture.
Always a pleasure. Shout out to the Culture Crew. Great commentary today. Thank you guys for watching. Shout out to Team Replay. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank y'all so much for joining us and being a part of the conversation. Make sure you go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network and give something. If you got something to give and you can give it, please. It makes a world of difference for us. So thank all of you for being investors and stakeholders in the Black Star Network. Also, follow me on social media at The Real Farajii on Instagram, at Farajii on X, and I would love to connect with you to build our beloved community. Big shout out to each and every one of you in the Culture Crew on X platform, YouTube, and Facebook. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Stay tuned. Up next at 6 p.m. is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you later. Peace. Have a great evening.